everybody, this is Sarah from Maylee Studios. I'm going to show you a tutorial to do deplying yarn. Now, yarn is usually, if you look at this piece here, yarn is usually made up of multiple plies. You usually see this when the pieces of it come apart. So in this case, I'm using Caron's Simply Soft yarn, and it comes in 4 ply. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And what we're going to do is sometimes when I'm crocheting, I need to have smaller yarn, but I want to use the same brand or the same color so that it's not any different. Plus, it's a little bit cost effective because you only have to buy the same thing. So we're going to use this thread to de-ply the yarn, and I found a technique that's a lot easier than what I've ever heard of before. Most people have said that they use some sort of weight with a porch and they drop it down and let it split that way, and it's really time consuming and you gotta hope that nothing will attack your yarn. And then some people have said if you have 2 kids, it'll be great because you can send one that way and you can send one that way and they will help you split the yarn, which also works, but if you don't have 2 kids or 2 helpers, you're kind of stuck. So what I've discovered to deply yarn only takes 1 person, and you can do as much yarn as you want. I have actually taken apart an entire skein of Hobby Lobby's I Love Cotton yarn for a project. So this is what it'll end up looking like. It depends on how many plies you want to have left. This has 2, and I've wrapped this around one of my little cardboard cats, which I will put a link for in the comment section. Now, what you're going to need to deply your yarn is your yarn that you're going to start with. You need to decide how many plies you're going to make it. I'm going to split this down into 2. You are going to need something to wrap your yarn around after you're finished, which these are the little cardboard cats that I talk about, similar to what you use with embroidery floss. You're going to need a drop spindle or a spindle of some kind to actually unspin your yarn, which we'll talk about in a minute. And this one I have made, and we'll be posting a blog on my website about it as how you can make your own. And then the other thing you're going to need is this, which is called a ball winder. It is used to actually take a skein from what you buy in the store and wind it on this part right here to make your own ball. We'll use that as a second pair of hands to separate the ply of the yarn. So what you're going to need to do first is get your drop spindle and your yarn, and you're going to wrap the yarn around the base of your spindle just like you would if you were actually spinning yarn, but we're going to spin it backwards. So you have to put the yarn on so that it won't come off. So you've wrapped a little bit on there, and then you wrap it up to the hook. Now comes the part where you're actually going to unspin it. What you're going to do is you're going to spin it in the opposite direction that it's made up of. So this is spinning this way to make the yarn. We want to go the exact opposite direction until it's actually straight. So this is straight. So then what you would do is you take it off of the hook and you wind it up. And what we want to end up with is a bunch of straightened yarn. So you secure your yarn again, you unspin it, until the yarn is straight. Now I have a little bit of extra spin in here, just like you would if you're actually spinning the yarn, and you can just pull out until all of it's straight and then wind it up on the spindle portion. And you just keep repeating that process until all of your yarn is unspun. Now usually with a drop spindle, you actually hold it over the floor so that the weight and gravity will help you spin it. I'm just using my hand here because I'm only using a small piece, so you would actually do it like this to unspin. So this is the last bit. Okay, so you finish the first part, which is unspinning the coil of the yarn. The next thing we're going to do is to actually split the yarn. So if you have to stop here and you can't complete your project, just put it underneath a previous loop of your yarn, because then, except for the tail end here, it won't unspin. So the next part is to take the yarn that you've unspun and you're going to actually split it. Now you need to get your ball winder for this. I have it attached to a book so that this particular table does not allow me to put my ball winder on here, so I'm going to use it on top of this book, which is just fine. If you don't have a table you can attach it to, make sure you put it next to something or on something that's nice and flat and has some weight to it so that it won't roll when you try to use it. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually pull the yarn off of our spindle. Which is unspun. And now we have to actually start the splitting process. So what we have to do is we are going to pull apart into 2 ply, which is what I'm intending to do here. And we're going to feed the first part through the ball winder to wind up here. And the second part we're going to put back on our spindle to also wind on the other side. So what you need to do is you need to pull apart just enough of it so that you can feed it into your ball winder. Now since I'm using so little yarn here to show you how to do this, it's going to kind of give me some issues. So just unwrap a little bit of it, split it with your hands, and then you can start the ball actually winding over on this machine. I like to make sure that this tail end gets tucked underneath so it doesn't want to let go then.
That was me.
And one great tip is when you're using the ball winder, when you need to stop and let something rest, have the handle pointed down so that it'll hold it steady. Okay, so now we're going to take this other side here and put it back on the spindle, just like we did before. Okay, so what we're going to do is simultaneously, to a certain extent, you're going to be wrapping it on here while you're wrapping it on here, but you can alternate in between, and I'll show you what I mean. So I have extra thread for the spindle to take up, so I'm going to do that. And then when I get to this point, I will actually put my hand on the crank over here for the ball winder and just slowly turn both of them at the same time until I catch a snag. Now snags will happen pretty often because of all the extra fibers, the fuzzy part of the string. So all you need to do is just give it a little bit of straightening and splitting with your fingers, and then start winding it again. So you can see here it's stuck because of all those extra threads. You just need to take your finger and pull slightly to get them to let go, and then you can keep winding. Now sometimes when you're unspinning the yarn, it will spin back up, or maybe you didn't unspin it enough. That's okay. You just need to be careful to make sure that it comes apart easy enough. You're not pulling it too hard or yanking it. Now when you get to the end like this, you just finish it off. And you can leave half of it on the winder. I'm going to set this to the side for the minute for the next part. Now what we're going to end up doing is we're going to actually re-spin the plies here because I want 2 plies. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this on the bobbin down here, and I'm actually going to wrap it up through the hook just like you would to spin it as normal. And then you just spin it to give it some extra twist. Like that. Do another portion of it. And respin. Again, you would do this over the floor with the drop spindle like I have, but I'm doing it this way so you can see what I'm up to. The other way to do it is to actually take the thread off of the drop spindle and put it onto, I'll call it my kitty card, with it unspun, and then respin it and put it on the spindle part. Then you will get your kitty card, and this is just made out of a simple piece of cardboard. It's got notches just like the embroidery floss versions. So you'll put the string on and then just wrap the card. And then you have de-plied yarn or unspun yarn. So you can use this as a lighter weight yarn. I used it in the Sophie doll to actually make the shirt for my daughter when I was working on the prototype. And you can use smaller hooks. You can even use these for up to lace crochet hooks. Now the only thing you would have to complete is your other half, which is this. And since it's on the ball winder, it actually makes it really, really nice to work with, because if you have it feed back through, I'm going to put the ball winder over here, and you would attach the string to your spindle as before. So you pull out some thread, it'll unwind for you. You will spin the thread. And this process goes a whole lot faster. So obviously if you're going to do large amounts of yarn, it's going to take some time. You do have to still be patient. But you can decide how tight of a spin you want on your double or single ply. You can actually also use this process to make yarn for your, or not yarn, rope for yourself. So then you can just spin it up to the spindle and push this out of the way. We're going to add this yarn to the one that's already on the card. And this is what makes it really fun. You just pull off, add it to your card. Make sure to secure down those tails, they like to go places. And then you have your finished yarn. Now you could even go farther if you wanted to. If you were working on a very small lace project, for example, you could actually unply the yarn one more time with it being done down to 2. So you always have to split it in half to work with it. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below, and I hope you'll check out other videos in the future.